Governor Huntsman, at the risk of raising Speaker Gingrich's ire, I'm going to ask you about your record, sir. You supported a stimulus package in 2009. In fact, you said the Obama stimulus package was not big enough. As governor, you signed on to a regional cap and trade market. You endorsed civil unions for same-sex couples, and you served as President Obama's ambassador to China. Some people have suggested that maybe you're running for president in the wrong party.
Chris, let me just say I'm proud of my service to this country. If you love your country, you serve her. During a time of war, during a time of economic hardship, when asked to serve your country in a sensitive position where you can actually bring a background to help your nation, I'm the kind of person who's going to stand up and do it, and I'll take that philosophy to my grave. In terms of the stimulus you talked about, it was failed. And let me tell you what I talked about with respect to the stimulus. I talked about the need for more tax cuts in the stimulus. We didn't have enough of it. And why did I talk about the need for tax cuts for business? Because we had done it in the state of Utah. We had done historic tax cuts. We created a flat tax in the state of Utah, exactly what needs to happen in this country. We got the economy moving. We became the #1 job creator in this nation and the best managed state. That's exactly what needs to happen in this nation. I am running on my record, and I'm proud to run on my record.
Mr. Cain, you have a compelling personal story and a strong record as a businessman, but you also have a growing list of questionable statements in this campaign, and I want to ask you about those, if I may, sir. You said that communities have the right to ban Muslims from building mosques before you later apologized. You have stated that you do not have a firm plan yet as to what you would do in Afghanistan until you talk to the generals. You, at one point in the campaign, didn't know about the so-called Palestinian right of return during a big debate about the Mideast peace issues. How do you reassure people that you know enough to be President of the United States, sir?
You want me to answer all of those in 1 minute, Chris? Pick one.
Thank you, sir.
I know more about the Palestinian, the right of return issue now than I did then. But I know about it. I've been documented. The first point that you raised about saying that communities have a right to ban mosques, no, that's not exactly what I said. Unfortunately, the people who helped you put that together have misquoted me. I have gone on record, and I put it on a press release that's available at my office that simply says that if anyone misunderstood my intent, I apologize for that. But never will I apologize for saying that Sharia law does not belong in the courts of the United States of America. Now, relative to Afghanistan, since we did this last, I have learned more about Afghanistan. You may recall that one of the things that I always stress, make sure you're working on the right problem. We don't have one problem in Afghanistan. We have 3 problems to deal with. I now have a better understanding of it, and if I get an opportunity to rebuttal, I'll tell you what those 3 are.
You're going to get asked about Afghanistan, sir. Brett.
Now we turn to Susan Ferruccio at the Washington Examiner. She has the next round of questions for the candidates, the topic illegal immigration. Susan.
Okay, we'll start with Governor Huntsman. You said that we need to build a fence to secure our borders, but then we need to deal with the millions of illegal immigrants already here in the country. You said, quote, there's got to be an alternative to sending them back. That's unrealistic. Governor Huntsman, are you proposing citizenship for illegal aliens?
Listen, I am a conservative problem solver. I am pro-life. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I'm pro-growth on economics. And I'm here to tell you that when elected president, the thing we need to do most on illegal immigration, because there has been zero leadership in Washington, and with zero leadership in Washington, we've created this patchwork of solutions in a lot of the states, which makes for a very complex and confusing environment. When elected president, I'm simply going to prove to the American people that we can secure the border. That's what they want done. And I'm not going to talk about anything else until we get it done. Secure the border. 1,800 miles, we've got 1/3 of it done between fencing and technology and National Guard boots on the ground. We can finish. And I'll talk to the 4 border state governors and get verification from them that, in fact, we've secured the border. And once that is done, then we can move on. But this discussion has zero in the way of any intellectual credibility until such time as we secure the border.
Okay. Governor Romney, turning to you. In 2008, that you said you favored allowing American companies to hire more skilled foreign workers. With the unemployment rate now at 9.1%, do you still think that employers need to import more foreign labor?
Well, of course not. We're not looking to bring people in jobs that can be done by Americans, but at the same time, we want to make sure that America is a home and welcome to the best and brightest in the world. If someone comes here and gets a PhD in physics, that's the person I'd like to staple a green card to their diploma, rather than saying to them to go home. Instead, we let people come across our border illegally or stay here and overstay their visa. They get to stay in the country. I want the best and brightest to be metered into the country based upon the needs of our employment sector and create jobs by bringing technology and innovation that comes from people around the world. Look, we are a nation of immigrants. We love legal immigration. But for legal immigration to work, we have to secure the border, and we also have to crack down on employers that hire people who are here illegally. I like legal immigration. I'd have the number of visas that we give to people that come here legally, determined in part by the needs of our employment community. But we have to secure our border and crack down on those that bring folks here and hire here illegally.
Okay. Turning to you now, Mr. Cain. When President Obama joked about protecting the borders with alligators in a moat, not only did you embrace the idea, you upped the ante with, quote, a 20-foot barbed wire electrified fence. Were you serious?
America has got to learn how to take a joke. But allow me to give you my real solution to the immigration problem. I happen to believe that it is 4 problems. Yes, we must secure the border with whatever means necessary. Secondly, enforce the laws that are there. Thirdly, promote the path to citizenship that's already there. We have a path to citizenship for illegal aliens. It's called legal immigration. And then fourth, I happen to agree with empowering the states and allow them to deal with that issue. If we work on the right problem, we will be able to solve it. And in the case of immigration, we've got 4 problems that we need to work on simultaneously. It turns out that America can be a nation with high fences and wide open doors. That's what built this nation. So we can have high fences and wide open doors all at the same time.
All right. Thank you. Speaker Gingrich, you recently told Univision that you're looking at the idea of having citizen boards choose which illegal immigrants can stay in the country and which would have to go. Who decides the memberships of these boards, and how would they work?
I think that it's very important to go back and look at how the Selective Service Commission worked in World War II, because it was local, practical decision-making, and people generally thought it was fair and it was reasonable. But let me go back to your earlier question to Herman. I thought the president's speech in El Paso, where he talked about moats and alligators, was the perfect symbol of his failure as a leader. He failed to get any immigration reform through when he controlled the Senate and he controlled the House. He could ram through Obamacare, but he couldn't deal with immigration. Now he has Republicans in the House in charge, and he descends to a level of attack which I think is very sad for a president of the United States on an issue like this. We ought to control the border, and I agree with Governor Huntsman. We can control the border. I'd be prepared to take as many people from Homeland Security's bureaucracy in Washington and move them to Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico as are needed to control the border. We should have English as the official language of government, and we should have a method for distinguishing between people who've lived here a long time and people who've come very recently.
Okay, Congressman Paul, you're opposed to a system that requires employers to verify the immigration status of their workers. Why would you want to eliminate one more tool to help curb illegal immigration?
I don't like putting the burden on our businessman to be the policeman. That means he has to be a policing activity. And I also resent the fact that illegals come into this country and they do have problems, but if a church helps them and feeds them, we don't blame the church, or at least we shouldn't in a free society. But I have a strong position on immigration. I don't think that we should give amnesty and they become voters, but I do think we should deal with our borders. But one way that I would suggest that we could do it is pay a lot less attention to the borders between Afghanistan and Iraq and Pakistan, and bring our troops home and deal with the border. But why do we pay more attention to the borders overseas and less attention to the borders here at home? We now we have a mess on the borders, and it has a lot more to do with it than just immigration, because we're financing some of this militarism against the drug dealers on the borders right now to the tune of over $1 billion. And there is a mess down there, but it's much bigger than just the immigration problem. But I do not believe in giving entitlements to illegal immigrants at all, and there should be no mandates on the states to make them do it.
As I said, we'll be returning to topic number 1, the economy, throughout the debate. Byron York has the next round of questions.
Thank you, Brett. We're going to start with Governor Romney. Governor, in 2005, when you were the governor of Massachusetts, you successfully appealed to Standard & Poor's to upgrade your state's credit rating. You said you used a combination of spending cuts and new revenues to put Massachusetts on a more sound financial footing. You even approvingly cited a tax increase passed by the Democratic state legislature. Question, doesn't this show that sometimes raising taxes is necessary?
No, I don't believe in raising taxes. And as governor, I cut taxes 19 times and didn't raise taxes. Let's step back and talk about the first part of what you said. I was fortunate enough to be a governor that got an increase in the credit rating of my state. At the same time, we got a president who got a decrease in the credit rating of our nation. And that's because our president simply doesn't understand how to lead and how to grow an economy. I was very proud of the fact that Republicans and Democrats worked together in Massachusetts to cut spending. I came in, we had a huge deficit. I went to the legislature and I said, I want expanded powers to unilaterally be able to cut spending, not just slow the rate of growth, but to cut spending, and they gave it to me, and I did. We cut spending. Every single year I was governor, we balanced the budget. And by the end of my term, we had put in place over a $2 billion rainy day fund. That kind of leadership is what allowed us to get a credit upgrade from Standard & Poor's, and that's the kind of leadership we finally need to have in the White House.
All right, thank you. We're going to go to Governor Pawlenty next. Governor, you say you balanced every budget without tax increases as governor of Minnesota. But in 2005, you levied a new tax on cigarettes, which you called a health impact fee. You said you had to compromise with the Democratic legislature to end the government shutdown. But doesn't that show that when leaders are faced with big deficits, they sometimes have to raise taxes?
No. As I said before, I've got the best record of financial management, or one of them, of any governor in the country. The Cato Institute gave only 4 governors in America their highest grade, an A grade. I was one of those governors. The other 3 aren't running. The other 3 aren't even thinking about running. As to the circumstance that you mentioned, I had the first government shutdown in 150 years. We did put together a package, but I balanced the budget every time in Minnesota that I was the governor. In fact, my last budget ended June 30th of this year with a surplus. I did agree to the cigarette fee. I regretted that. As it turns out, the courts later held it to be a fee, but nonetheless, it was an increase in revenues. Turns out we had a new budget forecast a few months later, and we didn't even need it. But my record of leadership in Minnesota, cutting spending from historic highs to historic lows, balancing the budget every time, doing health care reform the right way, again, stands in contrast to Barack Obama. He should cancel his Cape Cod vacation, call the Congress back into session, and get to work on this. Barack Obama is missing in action. He should have the kind of leadership I had when I was governor of the state.
Thank you, Governor. Next, we're going to go to Representative Bachmann. This is a question also about that cigarette tax increase. You were in the Minnesota State Legislature at the time, and you said you opposed the tax, but in the end, you voted for it. Now you promise never to raise taxes. Why would you compromise then, but not now?
That's right. I was very vocal against that tax, and I fought against that tax. The problem is, when the deal was put together, Governor Pawlenty cut a deal with the special interest groups, and he put in the same bill a vote to increase the cigarette tax, as well as a vote that would take away protections from the unborn. And I made a decision. I believe in the sanctity of human life, and I believe you can get money wrong, but you can't get life wrong. And that's why I came down on that decision that I made.
Governor Pawlenty, do you have a response, 30 seconds to that?
Yeah, what's wrong in the answer is the answer. Congresswoman Bachmann didn't vote for that bill because of stripping away a pro-life protection. She voted for it and is now creating that as the excuse. But nonetheless, she speaks of leading these efforts in Washington and Minnesota. Leading and failing is not the objective. Leading and getting results is the objective. I've got the best record of results of any candidate in this race.